What if I told you that in the middle of a congressional hearing about free speech, someone accidentally exposed a secret no one was supposed to mention? It started with a single awkward question. You can't remember if you're meeting with the president. The room went silent. Cameras zoomed in. The witness laughed it off. But what came next turned that harmless exchange into something much darker, a pattern of silence, evasion, and contradiction surrounding the mysterious Epstein files. A list that was supposedly on her desk, then suddenly gone, and the question no one in that hearing seemed willing to answer: who's trying so hard to keep it buried? Because this wasn't just another chaotic moment in Congress, it was a crack in the armor, a glimpse into how power protects itself when the wrong people start asking the right questions.
Yields back. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Frux, thanks for being here, coming across the pond. I'm sorry to hear you're leaving the hearing early.
Contradictions and procedural excuses. Each time a new memo claims no list exists, each time a politician calls the issue a hoax, survivors are forced to relive the silence that protected their abusers for years. And while some officials insist secrecy is to protect privacy or national security, survivors hear something else: we still don't want to talk about it. There are legitimate reasons certain details can't be public: ongoing cases, classified investigations, the need to protect victims' identities. Those are real, but they don't explain why the story keeps changing. You can protect survivors without protecting enablers.
All right, so let me ask you something. What would you do if the Attorney General of the United States, the top law enforcement officer in the country, just flat out refused to answer questions about whether she's hiding files that mention the sitting president? And I'm not talking about some random documents here. I'm talking about Jeffrey Epstein files. Yeah, those files, because that's exactly what's happening right now with Pam Bondi. And it's not some conspiracy theory floating around on Twitter. This is real. This is happening in Congress right now in October 2025. Here's the deal. House Democrats are absolutely losing it. They're accusing Bondi, Trump's handpicked attorney general, of running a full-blown cover-up operation. And here's the kicker. She's not even denying it. She's just not answering at all. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust headlines anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. On October 17th, just a couple days ago, Representative Robert Garcia stood up and said something that should make every single American pay attention. He said, and I quote, "Each day Pam Bondi defies Congress's subpoena is another day Trump's cover-up continues." Can you believe this? A sitting attorney general is being accused of defying a congressional subpoena to protect the president. This isn't some Netflix drama. This is actually happening. And look, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh great, another Epstein story. We've heard it all before. But no, this is different. Because this time we're not talking about what happened back in 2019 when Epstein died. We're talking about what's happening right now in 2025 with files that the government has been sitting on. Files that reportedly mention Donald Trump multiple times. And the person in charge of releasing those files, she literally worked for Trump. She briefed Trump about what's in those files. And now she won't tell Congress a single thing. So here's what went down. Back in May 2025, Bondi had a private meeting with Trump, and according to reports, she told him straight up that his name appears multiple times in the Epstein files. Now, White House officials rushed out and said, oh, don't worry, there's nothing criminal. It's all non-substantive. Yeah, right. If it's so non-substantive, then why is Bondi acting like she's guarding nuclear codes? Fast forward to October 7th, Bondi sits down for a Senate Judiciary hearing. Senator Dick Durbin, he's asking her direct questions. Did you order the FBI to flag any mention of Trump in the Epstein files? You know what Bondi does? She just stares, refuses to answer, over and over again. It's on video. You can watch it yourself. The silence is deafening. And this isn't just Democrats being upset. This is bipartisan frustration. Because here's the thing. Congress issued a lawful subpoena. That's not a suggestion. That's not a request. That's a legal order. And Bondi is just ignoring it. The Justice Department has gone completely silent. Politico reported on October 16th that DOJ silence persists even as Congress demands answers. They're just stonewalling. Completely. Come on, think about this for a second. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, one of the most notorious criminals in modern history. A guy who had connections to powerful people all over the world. Presidents, princes, billionaires. And the U.S. government has files, documents, records that could tell us who was involved and how deep this thing goes. and the person in charge of those files is refusing to release them, refusing to even talk about them. So why does this matter? Why should you care about this right now? Because this is about red transparency. This is about whether powerful people get to play by different rules. This is about whether the Attorney General, the person who's supposed to uphold the law, can just decide which laws apply to her and which ones don't. And here's what makes it even worse. Online, social media is absolutely exploding. People are sharing images, some real, some fake, claiming to show Bondi with Trump and Epstein. Conspiracy theories are running wild. And you know what? The government's silence is making it worse. When you refuse to answer questions, when you hide documents, people fill in the blanks themselves. And right now, the blanks are being filled with some pretty dark theories. This story is fusing everything that makes people distrust Washington: sex crimes, political power, government secrecy. And it's all happening during Trump's second term. He can't run for president again, but this still matters. Because if Bondi is covering something up, if she's protecting powerful people, that affects all of us. That affects whether we can trust our justice system at all. The craziest part, this isn't happening in some dark corner of government. This is happening in broad daylight. Congressional hearings are public. The accusations are public. The stonewalling is public. Everyone can see what's going on. And yet, Bondi keeps doing it. She keeps refusing. She keeps hiding. Which means either she has Trump's full backing to do this, or there's something in those files so damaging that she's willing to destroy her own reputation to keep it hidden. Think about that. The Attorney General of the United States is willing to be accused of running a cover-up, willing to defy Congress, willing to face contempt charges, all to keep some documents hidden. What could possibly be worth that much risk? So buckle up, because what I'm about to show you, the details of what's really happening behind closed doors, is going to blow your mind. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's rewind a bit, because to really understand what's happening with Pam Bondi and these Epstein files, you need to know the history here. And trust me, the history is wild. Jeffrey Epstein died in August 2019, officially ruled a suicide in a federal jail cell. And ever since then, people have been demanding answers. Who was involved? Who knew what? What did the government know? And when did they know it? These are basic questions. And for years, we've gotten basically nothing. But here's where it gets interesting. When Trump came back into office for his second term, one of his first moves was appointing Pam Bondi as Attorney General. Now, Bondi isn't just any lawyer. She was Florida's Attorney General before. She's been in Trump's circle for years. She's loyal, super loyal. And Trump knew exactly what he was doing when he picked her. Because here's the thing, the Justice Department has been sitting on thousands of pages of Epstein-related documents, FBI files, interviews, flight logs, communications, and for years, both Republicans and Democrats have been screaming for these files to be released. There's even a Wikipedia page dedicated to the Epstein client list because people are so obsessed with figuring out who was involved. So when Bondi took over as Attorney General, there was this moment of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she finally released the files. Maybe we finally get some transparency. The Guardian reported back in July that Democrats were specifically pressing Bondi and Kash Patel, Trump's FBI director, about the Epstein files during confirmation hearings. And you know what Bondi said? She said she'd review them. She'd be transparent. She'd follow the law. Yeah, that didn't happen, like at all. Instead, what happened was this. In May 2025, Bondi had that private meeting with Trump, according to USA Today and CNN, which both reported on this in July. Bondi told Trump that his name shows up multiple times in the Epstein documents. Now, the White House was quick to spin this. They said, look, Trump's name is there because he was a high-profile person in New York. Epstein knew lots of famous people. It doesn't mean anything criminal. And you know what? That might be true. Trump's connections to Epstein have been public for years. They were photographed together in the 90s. Trump even said Epstein was a terrific guy back in the day, though he later distanced himself after Epstein's crimes became public. But here's the problem. If it's all so innocent, why won't Bondi just release the files? Why won't she answer questions about what's in them? Why is she treating this like some kind of national security secret? Fast forward to October 7th. Bondi appears before the Senate Judiciary Committee. This is a big deal. The Attorney General doesn't just show up to these hearings for fun. Senators get to ask questions under oath. And Dick Durbin, he's the ranking Democrat on the committee. He came prepared. Durbin asked Bondi point blank, did you order the FBI to flag any mention of Trump when reviewing the Epstein files? This is a yes or no question. Super simple. You either did or you didn't. And you know what Bondi said? Nothing. She literally refused to answer. The Washington Post covered this. CNBC covered this. There's video of it on YouTube where you can see Durbin getting visibly frustrated. He asked the question multiple times, and each time, Bondi just sits there, stone-faced, silent. Are you kidding me? This is the Attorney General of the United States. She's supposed to be transparent. She's supposed to answer to Congress. That's how our system works. But instead, she's acting like a defense lawyer protecting a client. And guess who the client is? Yeah, the president. Now, let's talk about what happened next. On October 17th, Representative Robert Garcia, he's a Democrat from California, he went nuclear. He put out a statement accusing Bondi of obstructing a lawful subpoena and shielding powerful individuals connected to Epstein. And he didn't stop there. He said that every day Bondi refuses to comply is another day of Trump's cover-up. This is huge because Garcia isn't just some random backbencher. He's on the House Oversight Committee. And he's basically saying out loud in public that the Attorney General is running a cover-up operation for the president. That's an insane accusation. And the fact that he's willing to say it publicly, that tells you how serious this has gotten. ABC News reported that Democrats are now highlighting what they call DOJ weaponization around the Epstein files. They're saying Bondi is using her power as Attorney General not to pursue justice, but to protect Trump and his associates. And look, you might think that's partisan politics. You might think Democrats are just trying to score points. But here's the thing. They issued a subpoena, a legal subpoena, and Bondi is ignoring it. That's not politics. That's obstruction. And it's not just Democrats who are frustrated. Politico reported on October 16th that even some Republicans are privately expressing concern about the DOJ silence. Because here's the reality. Nobody wants to be seen as protecting Jeffrey Epstein's associates. Nobody. That's political poison. So the fact that Bondi is willing to take this heat, the fact that she's willing to stonewall Congress, that tells you something. Either she's protecting something big, or she genuinely believes that releasing these files would be worse than defying Congress. So what's actually in these files? Well, we don't know, not fully, because Bondi won't release them, but based on the reporting, here's what we do know. The files reportedly include FBI interview notes with people who were close to Epstein. They include communications between Epstein and various high-profile individuals. They include flight logs from Epstein's private jet, the one people call the Lolita Express. And according to multiple sources, Trump's name appears in these documents multiple times. Now, does that mean Trump did something illegal? Not necessarily. Trump has never been charged with any crime related to Epstein. And the White House has been very clear. They say Trump's mentions are non-substantive. But here's the problem with that explanation. If it's really non-substantive, why not just release it? Why not let the public see for themselves? The fact that they're hiding it, that makes people suspicious. It makes people think there's more to the story. And this is where the cover-up allegations come in. Because it's not just about what's in the files. It's about the pattern of behavior. Bondi had that private meeting with Trump in May. She told him what was in the files. And then she decided not to release them. She decided to stonewall Congress. She decided to refuse to answer questions under oath. That's not transparency. That's the opposite of transparency. Al Jazeera did a whole profile on Bondi in July asking, who is Trump's Attorney General handling the Epstein files? And the answer is someone who's deeply loyal to Trump, someone who's willing to take heat to protect him, someone who sees her job not as serving the public, but as serving the president. NPR reported back in August that Trump and Bondi have a long history together. She defended him during his first impeachment. She was one of his lawyers. She's been in his inner circle for years. So when Trump picked her as Attorney General, he knew exactly what he was getting. He was getting someone who would put loyalty to him above everything else, including Congress, including transparency, including the law. And this is wild, because we're not talking about some minor policy disagreement here. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. We're talking about one of the most notorious criminals in modern history. We're talking about files that could potentially reveal who else was involved in his crimes. And the person in charge of those files, the person who could release them with the stroke of a pen, she's refusing to do it. She's defying Congress. She's stonewalling. And she's doing it all to protect the president. Come on. How is this okay? How is anyone defending this? And you know what makes this even more infuriating? The Justice Department actually released a press statement saying they're working on a first phase of declassified Epstein files. But when is that coming? What's in it? How much is being redacted? They won't say. It's like they're dangling a carrot in front of Congress and the public, saying, yeah, we'll release something eventually, but never actually following through with meaningful transparency. This whole situation reminds people of other political scandals where documents were hidden. Remember the Hillary Clinton email controversy? Remember the fights over Hunter Biden laptop materials? Every time the government hides documents, every time officials refuse to answer questions, it creates this massive cloud of suspicion. And right now, that cloud is hovering directly over Pam Bondi and the Trump White House. All right, so let's break this down because there's a lot happening here, and I want to make sure you understand exactly what's going on. There are basically 4 big pieces to this story, and once you see them all together, you'll understand why this is such a massive scandal. First piece, the documents themselves. The Justice Department has thousands of pages of Epstein-related files. These include FBI records, interview transcripts, communications, flight logs, basically everything the government collected during their investigation of Epstein. And here's the key thing. These documents reportedly mention Trump multiple times. Now, according to the White House, these mentions are non-substantive. They say Trump's name comes up because he was a famous New York businessman who ran in the same social circles as Epstein back in the 90s and 2000. And you know what? That's probably true. Trump and Epstein were photographed together. They went to parties together. Trump even said nice things about Epstein before his crimes became public. So yeah, it makes sense that Trump's name would be in there. But here's the problem. We don't actually know what the documents say because Bondi won't release them, and that's what makes people suspicious. If it's really all innocent, if Trump's mentions really are non-substantive, then why hide them? Why not just release the documents and let people see for themselves? The fact that they're being hidden, that makes people think there's something worse in there. It makes people fill in the blanks with their worst fears. And this is where conspiracy theories start. Because when the government hides information, people assume the worst. Right now, social media is going crazy with theories about what might be in those files. Some people think Trump was more involved with Epstein than we know. Some people think there are other powerful people mentioned in the files, and Bondi is protecting them too. Yahoo News even had to do a fact check on October 19th because fake images were going viral, claiming to show Bondi with Trump and Epstein together. The photo was fake, but the fact that people believed it shows you how much distrust there is right now. Second piece, Bondi's behavior. This is what really makes the cover-up allegation stick. Because it's not just that Bondi won't release the files, it's how she's acting about it. She had a private meeting with Trump in May where she briefed him on what's in the files. Think about that for a second. The Attorney General, the nation's top law enforcement officer, gave the president a heads up about what's in documents that mention him. That's weird. Like, that's not how it's supposed to work. The Attorney General is supposed to be independent. She's supposed to serve the public, not the president. But it gets worse. When Bondi went before the Senate in October, she refused to answer basic questions. Senator Durbin asked her, "Did you order the FBI to flag mentions of Trump?" That's a simple question, yes or no, and she wouldn't answer. She just sat there, silent. And when Congress issued a subpoena demanding the files, she ignored it. The Justice Department has gone completely dark on this issue. They're not releasing documents. They're not answering questions. They're just stonewalling. And here's what makes this so damning. Bondi isn't stupid. She knows that refusing to comply with a congressional subpoena looks terrible. She knows it makes her look guilty. She knows it feeds conspiracy theories, but she's doing it anyway, which means either she's protecting something big or she genuinely believes that whatever's in those files would be worse for Trump than the appearance of a cover-up. Either way, that's bad. BBC covered this story and pointed out that Bondi's silence is actually making things worse because every day she doesn't release the files, every day she doesn't answer questions, that's another day for conspiracy theories to spread. That's another day for people to assume the worst. If she really had nothing to hide, the smart move would be to just release everything and move on. But she's not doing that. She's digging in. She's fighting. And that tells you something. The way she's handling this is textbook cover-up behavior. It's the same pattern we've seen in every major political scandal. First, deny there's a problem. Second, stall and delay. Third, claim executive privilege or national security. Fourth, attack the people asking questions. And Bondi is hitting every single beat. She's following the playbook perfectly, which makes you wonder who taught her this playbook, who's advising her on how to handle this, because this level of stonewalling doesn't happen by accident. Third piece, the political implications. Now Trump is in his second term. He can't run for president again. So you might think, well, what does it matter? He's term limited anyway, but that's not how this works. Because if these files reveal something damaging about Trump, that affects his entire legacy, that affects how history remembers him, that affects ongoing investigations, that affects potential criminal prosecutions after he leaves office. And it's not just about Trump. These files could mention other powerful people, other politicians, other business leaders, other celebrities. Epstein had connections all over the place. So when Bondi hides these files, she's potentially protecting a whole network of people. And that network, they have power, they have money, they have influence, and they definitely don't want their names coming out in connection with Jeffrey Epstein. This is also happening at a time when trust in government is at an all-time low. People already think the system is rigged. They already think powerful people play by different rules. And now, here comes Pam Bondi, literally proving them right. She's showing everyone that if you're powerful enough, if you're connected enough, you can ignore congressional subpoenas, you can hide documents, you can stonewall investigations, and nothing will happen to you. That's incredibly dangerous. Because when people lose faith in the justice system, when they stop believing that laws apply equally to everyone, that's when society starts to break down. That's when people stop following rules themselves. Why should regular people respect the law if the Attorney General doesn't? Fourth piece, what this means for accountability. And this is the big one, because this isn't just about Trump or Epstein or Bondi. This is about whether we can trust our justice system at all. The Attorney General is supposed to be the ultimate law enforcement officer in the country. She's supposed to be above politics. She's supposed to enforce the law fairly, no matter who's involved. But right now, it looks like Bondi is using her position to protect the president. It looks like she's putting loyalty to Trump above her duty to the public. And if that's true, if the Attorney General really is running a cover-up operation, then what does that say about our justice system? How can we trust any investigation? How can we trust any prosecution? If powerful people can just hide documents and ignore subpoenas, then the law doesn't mean anything. It's just theater. NPR reported in August that this whole situation is raising serious questions about DOJ independence. And they're right, because historically, the Justice Department is supposed to be separate from the White House. The Attorney General works for the American people, not the president. But under Bondi, that line is getting very blurry. She's acting more like Trump's personal lawyer than like the nation's Attorney General. And look, I get it. You might be thinking, well, every Attorney General is political. They're appointed by the president. Of course they're loyal. And yeah, that's true to some extent. But there are lines, and refusing to comply with a congressional subpoena, that crosses a line. Hiding documents that Congress has a legal right to see, that crosses a line. Refusing to answer questions under oath, that definitely crosses a line. Politico ran a whole magazine piece on this back in July, asking whether Bondi can handle the Epstein files fairly. And based on what we've seen, the answer seems to be no, she can't, or she won't. Either way, it's a disaster for government transparency. So what happens next? Well, Democrats are promising to keep fighting. Garcia said he's not backing down. Other House Democrats are talking about holding Bondi in contempt of Congress. If she continues to defy the subpoena, the Senate could hold more hearings. They could subpoena more documents. They could call more witnesses. But here's the reality. As long as Bondi has Trump's backing, she can probably keep stonewalling because the president controls the executive branch. And if Trump doesn't want those files released, Bondi isn't going to release them. Unless, and this is the big unless, public pressure gets too intense. If enough people demand answers, if the media keeps reporting on this, if the scandal gets big enough, then maybe, just maybe, something breaks. Maybe a whistleblower comes forward. Maybe someone leaks the documents. Maybe a judge orders them released. These things have a way of coming out eventually. The truth has a way of finding the light. Which brings us to the ultimate question. What's in those files that's so important to hide? What could possibly be worth defying Congress? Worth looking like you're running a cover-up? Worth destroying your reputation and undermining trust in the Justice Department? Because that's what Bondi is risking here. She's risking everything to keep these files hidden. And that should make every single American ask, why? What's so bad that it's worth all of this? We don't have the answer yet. Maybe we never will. Maybe these files stay buried forever. Maybe they get released years from now when nobody cares anymore. Or maybe, just maybe, they come out soon. And when they do, it's going to be explosive. Because at the end of the day, this is about more than Trump or Epstein or Bondi. This is about whether powerful people play by the same rules as everyone else. This is about whether our justice system works. This is about whether the government works for us or whether we work for them. And right now, it's not looking good. The fact that Bondi can just ignore Congress, the fact that she can refuse to answer questions under oath, the fact that she can hide documents that the public has a right to see, that should terrify everyone. Because if she can do it, who else can? What other scandals are being hidden? What other documents are being buried? What other questions are going unanswered? This is a defining moment for American democracy. Either we stand up and demand accountability, or we accept that powerful people are above the law. There's no middle ground here. Either the rules matter or they don't. And Pam Bondi is forcing us to decide which one it is. So stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Congress isn't giving up. The media isn't giving up. And the American people, they're not giving up either. Those files are going to come out eventually. And when they do, when we finally see what Bondi has been hiding, it's going to change everything. Until next time.